This is TWiT.
So this is something actually that is serious and you should worry about. We covered it on Security Now in great detail. It is an IoT botnet that is growing really rapidly. Already 2 million IoT devices, mostly routers, have been compromised. The botnet is growing at a rate of 10,000 per day. Now, a botnet that had 1/10 the size, the Mirai botnet, brought down on Christmas Day. You may remember the PlayStation network and Xbox network was used, and that took advantage of flaws in routers. Some of the same routers that we're seeing, by the way, in
Unplug those routers
in this new botnet. IoT devices like IP wireless cameras, just unpatched devices. This new one, which we're calling Reaper, although Checkpoint is calling it IO Troop. They say
Reaper's going to get the headlines.
A new IoT botnet storm is coming. It's recruiting IoT devices at a far greater pace and with more potential damage than the Mirai botnet of 2016. And if you look at the attacking IP addresses, this graph, which is growing pretty much it's almost exponential. It's a straight line right now. This is since the 29th of September. This is in 3 weeks, how much this has grown. It is growing really rapidly. But what we don't know is who created it, who controls it, and most importantly, what do they plan to do with it? There's nothing more to say except that's the facts, Jack. Was discovered by Checkpoint Security. The devices involved are cameras, D-Link routers, a number of D-Link routers, a number of TP-Link routers, and Netgear routers, AV-Tech, MikroTik, and Linksys. And we've seen many of these before. Your favorite, the Synology Disk Station Manager.
Right. Well, that's a NAS that someone put on the internet. You're not supposed to do that. They create a router, the SRM.
Right.
And that you can put on the internet. So many of these devices.
But my Synology's on the internet.
Through your router.
Yeah, through my router.
Right.
So you think that as a result couldn't
this was
join
people,
a botnet?
because there is a function that you can add to a Synology NAS
to say
turn it
be
into
a router. Got it.
That's a really bad idea. That's a horribly bad idea.
Well, people are doing it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
Can we not call this an Internet of Things botnet? Because while these are
routers I think it's unfair to call them.
These are things on the internet. That's
right.
different.
And I would say, again, your old routers, my God, burn them in a fire, you guys. Okay, recycle them responsibly. But
in a fire.
They really, you've got to unplug them. You've got to update. You've got to look for over-the-air updates. You've got to look for a company that actually does them and cares. Like, for example, I'm going to call you out, Linksys, because with Crack, I was like, hey, what's up with my routers? What are you guys doing? They're like, we are aware of the problem and we are addressing it. And I haven't heard boo since. And I want to see way better, way more rapid security from these companies. And that is going to stop this. That is all.
Well, I mean, then we also have the D-Link lawsuit right now.
Oh, yes, we do.
And they've thrown out a lot of that. Half of that lawsuit has been tossed because you can't really show any damages. You can show that the equipment is vulnerable.
Is this the FTC one?
This is the FTC one.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, and that kills me. It's like, wait a minute. We need some leverage against these manufacturers that will release a product and then they won't update the firmware for 5 years.
Well, and what you need is damage. I mean, and this is the problem with security up until now is it's all been an externality. So the people who pay for it, I as a consumer spending my money on my router that is super cheap instead of super secure, I'm not paying for when it takes down, Dine or my Netflix. So
I had a know-how segment planned for late last year, where I was going to show people how easy it was to scan a range of Comcast IP addresses, figure out which ones were vulnerable, and then get in and pivot. And it was basically a point and click type thing. And I thought better. I'm like, this is too dangerous. But the fact that it's too dangerous also means I can't believe that this is still possible. These are actively supported devices by Comcast, and I can exploit them with a script kiddie toolkit. And that's ridiculous. And that's not unique. That's common. Just go down the list of all those devices from all the major manufacturers.
What might be interesting is, unfortunately, like traditional, like the actual, when I think of an IoT device, these don't have the bandwidth or the compute power to be interesting. But if these could ruin something like that.
In a giant network, they do.
You pivot. You pivot. So it's
an amplification attack. So you don't care about the power of the device. As long as they can reflect something, you're happy.
Now, but it's even worse than that. That's the one thing. If I own the device and I can just make it send traffic, already that's valuable to me as a black hat.
Use it as a DDoS.
Right. But a lot of these that that allow me remote code execution, they will allow me to pivot. So now I can see inside your network. Now maybe I don't care what's in your network, but if I did, it's as if you don't have a firewall.
And that's the problem with the crack attack, which is clients, mostly IoT devices, that join networks, although actually not mostly IoT devices, including phones and laptops.
Yes, all kinds of things.
Yeah, all kinds of things. Anything that joins a network is vulnerable. The sad thing is, the interesting thing to me is the Mirai botnet had one flaw that it was taking advantage of. This one is much more sophisticated, which makes me nervous, makes me suspect maybe a more sophisticated actor is involved here, like, let's say, a nation state. It is a broad range of vulnerabilities being exploited. And as a result, that's why it's such a much broader range of internet-connected devices. And what's also interesting is many of these devices do have patches, but people just don't patch them. Yep. People just don't patch them.
Well, that's because it's a pain.
It's a pain.
They don't make it easy.
Sometimes the patches aren't available in a way that is easy for you to do it. One of the reasons why I suggest the Synology routers is because they will automatically update. I like that. Some people hate that. I love it because a consumer, like my parents, I can give this to them and say, just leave it on. It will take care of itself. Now, all of these attacks are taking advantage of something that we've done very poorly, and that is make the transition from the late 90s mindset to the new millennium mindset.
Mirai took advantage of the fact that they had a hardwired login.
Well, that too.
That's pretty pathetic.
Well, but no, I mean, the philosophy.
I don't know if that's any mindset from any decade.
Well, but the mindset used to be you protect the core. The cores were all the important stuff is.
Now it's the edge. The edge has brains.
And it was about 6 years ago when people started saying, I don't need to own the core if I can own the edge and use the edge to disrupt the core.
I want to correct myself. The Mirai net was not the one 2 years ago that affected the PlayStation Network. That was the one last Christmas that affected the Dyn DNS, that almost brought the internet down by bringing down a big DNS provider, Dyn. Yeah.
But I don't see this problem being solved through user action. It will never be solved through user action. In terms of their purchasing, what they buy, and then what they do after they buy, because most of these attacks don't directly affect the user. Like right now, for example, people listening to this, some percentage of the people listening to this show or watching this show have that on their router. Okay, what bad thing is happening to them right now? Nothing really. It's kind of an abstraction. And if you think about the number of users who don't take action when they have phishing attacks, when they have Trojans, when they have all these
actual
malware
problems. Yeah.
Right in front of their face.
You could be part of the Mirai botnet or this new botnet and not know it. There'd be excess traffic coming out of you.
I was going to say, your broadband may slow down a bit.
Maybe a little bit, but it didn't need to slow down much. By the way, not only does it take advantage of at least 7 or 8 different vulnerabilities, it has an entire Lua-based back end that allows new code modules to be downloaded to infected machines. This is much more sophisticated.
It's a malware that can be updated more easily than the
routers.
That's good.
So even if Checkpoint, a Chinese company, Qihoo 360, also found this, even if they were to analyze it and say it does this, it could do something different tomorrow. They know at least that it's programmable. So this is
that's really scary.
Just you know what? In a couple of weeks, we'll say, "Oh, now we know what Reaper was designed to do." But right now we don't. We just know it's out there.
Well, and it might be designed to do something different later.
And it might,
just drop in a new module.
I asked Steve, well, what can't they figure out what the command and control networks are? He said, no, there are a variety of IP addresses.
They're very smart about that.
They're very smart. All people should do, and the problem is it's not the people who watch this show, because they know enough anyway to keep their stuff up to date, is look at this database of infected devices and unplug them. As you said, donate them.
And responsibly recycle
Responsibly recycle with a hammer.
Yeah.
Because, you don't want to give it to Goodwill.
Give it to someone else, no.
Right.
Unless you really don't like that person.
No, it affects all of us.
It affects us, not them.
I was joking, but yes, absolutely. Here's the fun part. your neighbor who might be having compromised equipment, it's not just your neighbor's problem. Your neighbor's on your segment.
It's less
your broadband,
but it's even less your neighbor
Especially
problem than the world's problem. That's the funny thing is the burden of this doesn't, as you point out, lie on the guy who's infected, and so there's even less reason.
Yeah, if you ever want to get depressed, just Google like security and externalities, and you will just be like, we will never solve this, just like we will never fix the climate.